If you've ever used a third-party network like Venmo to shuffle money around or an online marketplace like eBay to sell your personal stuff, the IRS now wants to know about it in the form of a 1099-K. Now, this isn't just going to affect businesses, it also applies to individuals. So if you receive this form, you can't ignore it. It's going to be up to you to figure out your taxable portion and properly report it on your tax return, even if you don't think it's taxable. That is, unless you want the IRS on your back. Hi, and welcome back to Stop Being Sold. My name is Michelle, and I'm here with Brian. And in this video, we're breaking down everything you need to know about the 1099-K form, including what third-party payment services are exempt, what types of transactions are included and exempt, and what's going on in Congress right now that could change the $600 threshold of this new rule. So, Brian, let's start with exactly what the 1099-K form is and who's in the IRS's spotlight.
1099-K, also known as the Payment Card and Third-Party Network Transactions Form, is an IRS information return designed to enhance voluntary tax compliance.
I like that. Voluntary tax compliance. Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh on that one. Anyway, it's been around since 2012, and it was initially meant for banks and credit card companies to report transactions to both individuals and to the IRS where gross payments exceeded $20,000 and there was more than 200 transactions. Now, thanks to the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, third-party payment networks or online marketplaces will be required to send 1099-Ks to anyone with more than $600 in gross payments and any number of transactions.
Yeah.
This includes payments for a personal item you sold or for goods you sell, services you provide, or property you rent through any like peer-to-peer payment platform or a digital wallet. Maybe an online marketplace where you sell or resell of clothing, furniture, and other items, craft or marketplace, auction site, car sharing or ride-hailing platforms, real estate marketplace, ticket exchange, resale sites, crowdfunding platforms, or even a freelance marketplace.
And that list that Brian just went through is directly from the IRS. It's what they've got on their site.
Yep.
So, Brian, let's shift gears here. What shouldn't be reported on the 1099-K form?
Okay. This would be money you receive from like your friends, your family as a gift or a reimbursement of a personal expense. That should not be reported on a Form 1099-K. Because they aren't payments for goods or services, they're not included as taxable income.
Okay.
So, for example, if you get birthday money or holiday money, or you get paid by a family member or a friend for a household bill, maybe split a dinner out or sharing the cost of a car ride, that shouldn't be reported. Okay. The IRS, though, is recommending that you note these types of payments as non-business when possible in the payment apps.
Yeah, we'll get to that noting things in a minute. But before we get there, I want to talk about who is sending out the 1099-K forms and who's exempt.
Okay. So if you use marketplaces like eBay, PayPal, Etsy, service providers like Ticketmax or StubHub, or even digital payment services like Venmo or PayPal, you're going to get a 1099-K form from them. Now, Zelle, though, and on the other hand, is exempt from sending the 1099-K form because it's controlled by a consortium of banks that use it to send client funds directly to one another. Right. The payment network never has custody of your money. That turns out to be a key distinction for income tax reporting purposes. But just because Zelle isn't required to send 1099-K forms, that doesn't mean you don't have to pay your taxes. Yeah. You still must report all that taxable income you made, including income from Zelle, on your 2023 taxes.
All right. So what if you get a form for a personal transaction or personal transactions are included in the total amount on your 1099-K form from a specific issuer? So let's say I've sold some things. It's in my 1099-K form from, let's say, PayPal, but also in there are numerous transactions where my friends were paying me back for dinner. What happens if you get those personal transactions included?
This is what something experts are worried about. Because just one transaction can trigger the whole form.
Right.
Some taxpayers may now receive a 1099-K by mistake, creating headaches at tax time.
A lot of headaches.
Yes. Here's the deal. The IRS assumes these transactions on your 1099-K are accurate, So it's up to you, the individual, to properly report on your tax return and either refute or confirm what the IRS believes is true.
This is going to be an absolute nightmare for a lot of people, especially if you get an inaccurate form.
Uh, it's going to be. It's
Yeah.
going to be. If repayment for a friend for dinner, like you said, is included in the gross amount of your 1099K,
Yeah.
the IRS says you've got to contract the issuer immediately and keep a copy of the original form and all correspondence with that issue for your records. Who's
Yikes.
going to do that for dinner?
Right.
The same. Also, for the sale of personal goods and services, how you report these payments on your tax return depends on whether you sold the item at a loss or as a gain.
Okay.
If you sold a mix of personal items at a loss and a gain, you've got to report them separately.
Oh my God.
A
Wow.
loss on the sale of a personal item is not deductible.
Right.
A gain, though, on the sale of a personal item is taxable. The IRS lays
Oof.
all this out. We'll drop the link below this in the description, and you want to make sure you're going to check this out.
Yeah, I encourage you, go check that link below. Read the entire document they have, because it's Brian, what you just went through about separating out if you sold loss or gain, if it's you're gonna have to report them separately. And there's a lot of
Right.
detail in that. All right. So do you think that people are going to be able to do taxes on their own if they get one or more of these 1099K forms?
Well, first of all, it's not going to be that easy. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Okay. If you understand the tax laws, you may be able to do it yourself if you kept accurate records of every transaction.
Yeah.
And if you aren't currently tracking all transitions, that's happening, you need to start right now.
Right
Okay.
now.
Um, for those of you who find the shoebox storing method easy, where you save every receipt, make sure you write on the back of it what happened at that time.
Sure.
Okay, there's your way of keeping track of it. And for those that are tech savvy, open and save an Excel spreadsheet of your transactions, the dates, the times, what actually occurred. Also,
Right.
keep the original
Receipts.
receipts that
Yeah.
you
Well,
match
and
up to
also
that
when you
sheet.
start moving money around, like in PayPal, for example, you can say what it's for, right? And
Sure.
it has that little note line. So
I
do
think
you?
I think Michelle, with that, I think the payment providers and all these apps
Yeah.
will have to start keeping more detailed
Sure.
documentation for the consumer or making it easier, because if not, you're going to move from one payment provider to the other. I just
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep. All
whatever's
right.
easiest.
What else should people be doing to prepare for tax season next year?
If you get a 1099K form, save it, because you're going to need to account for this when you file your taxes next year. And like I
Absolutely.
said, start tracking all your expenses so you can deduct these expenses from your taxes, and make notes when you send money to others.
Yeah. Use that little note line, or like you said, write it out in a notebook or
Right.
put it in an Excel sheet. All right, I want to shift gears here and talk about what's going on in Congress to change this law. So, some lawmakers are currently pushing to increase the IRS reporting threshold for this Form 1099K, and in fact, there's bipartisan support for this change.
Oh, yes, there is. The Republican led House Ways and Means Committee in June approved legislation to revert the reporting thresholds back to the 2022 levels. There's also proposals in the Senate, including the Red Tape Reduction Act,
Uh-huh.
introduced by Senator Sherrod Brown and Bill Cassidy in May, which aims to raise that threshold to $10,000.
Got it.
Also, you got organizations like the American Institute of CPAs
Right.
recently renews its support for raising the reporting threshold to avoid significant confusion in the tax system. Imagine that.
Significant. So the CPAs are saying this is going to cause significant confusion in the tax system.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
And also, a June letter endorsing the Senate's Red Tape Reduction Act, AICPA, voiced
Mhm.
concern about an administrative burden for taxpayers and the IRS, especially if Forms 1090K wrongfully include personal transactions such as gifts or reimbursements.
Right. Well, this would be a great time to subscribe to this channel if you're not already, because Brian and I will continue to update you as this evolves. And also, if you like the content of this video, hit that like button. So, Brian, this was back in June. We had Congress, do what they did.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
we still have nothing here. I guess we can only hope and pray that something gets passed and raises this threshold. But
Right.
personally, I'm not holding my breath, because with all this insane spending, the government's going to need all the money it can get, and nothing's happened yet.
Well, and that's true. And don't forget what we're stepping into now, what could actually be a government shutdown
I know.
in the coming weeks.
They're going to
So,
need the funds.
yeah, that's besides the point, I guess. But definitely, though, this will rake in some funds. It's a massive taxable event, no matter how they portray it.
Yeah.
Tens of millions of people use these payment systems, and they will be starting to pay taxes on every transaction.
Absolutely. All right. Well, make sure you like this video. Don't forget to subscribe, as Brian and I are on top of any breaking news that pertains to this, and also other bills that may affect you and your financial future. And don't forget, please check out that IRS link in the description below. It's really important that you know what's going on. We've just briefly touched the surface. Get in there and take a look. All right. Well, thank you so much, Brian, for this. Appreciate it. And thanks to everyone who watched.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.